Well, welcome everybody to the second ever JV Campfire Story. And today, we're going to talk about Amityville horror. Alright, now to start this story, we're going to start with the Defeo family. The first thing that ever happened in this house that was a mystery. So, Ronald Sr. and his wife Louise moved into this house with their eldest son, Ronald Jr., and their other two sons and their two daughters. Now, they moved into the house in 1965, and it was a beautiful Dutch colonial house. It was a beautiful 1927 Dutch colonial house. It had 3 stories, 5 bedrooms, 3.5 bathrooms, plus a basement. It was a beautiful house. Of course, they paid top dollar for it. Now, the father, Ronald Sr., worked at the Buick dealership that the wife's family owned. I think he was a service manager. And as Ronald Sr. grew up, he ended up coming to work with the father at the Buick dealership. Now, they lived there for 9 years. Now, the story focuses mostly around Ronald Jr. He was born in September of 1951. He was born in Brooklyn, and he died March 12, 2021, just last year. Almost a year ago. This is May 13th, by the way. Friday the 13th of 2022. I'm out here shooting this video. But yeah, he died in custody. Now he had the 4 other siblings, as I said. At the time, his oldest sister, Dawn, was 18. And then it was Ellison, who was 13, Mark, who was 12, and John Matthew, who was 9. Now, it's said that Ronald Jr. did not have a good upbringing. His dad was very abusive, very strict type father. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being strict, but he was very abusive with his strictness. And it says he was also bullied at school about his weight. He was a chubby kid. Don't be bullying the chubby kids, guys. So when he was 16, he dropped out of high school. Obviously, went through a bunch of dead-end jobs after that, till his father hired him in at the dealership. So when he was 17, he started using all kinds of drugs, LSD and many others. And obviously that caused problems within the family. Ronald Jr. has also been married 3 times. Once before the murders, and he's been married twice after them. Alright, so what happened? What was this terrible thing? Well, on November 13th, 1974, somewhere between 3 a.m. and to 9 a.m. They're not really sure. I've seen all kinds of conflicting evidence on that. Ronald Jr. went through his whole house and murdered every single one of his family members. His father and mother were both shot twice, and each one of his brothers and sisters was shot once. Now, he used a 35 caliber lever action Marlin. Police later found the gun in the creek by the house. Now, it said about 6:30 that afternoon, Ronald ran into the local bar and started screaming, "Help, help, I think my parents have been shot." So a small group of people went with him back to the house, and when they found the carnage, his friend called the Suffolk County Police Department, and when they showed up, one of the things they found that was strange, that they've noticed right away, was that every family member was found shot and dead, but they were all face down in the bed, and nobody had tried to run away or move or get away. He just walked through the house and shot each one, and it looked like nobody had tried to get away. Another weird part of the story is that the neighbors claimed they never heard any of these gunshots from a 35 caliber Marlin lever action in the neighborhood. Nobody, they claimed, fired off 8 rounds, and the neighbors claimed they didn't hear it. Said the only thing they heard was their dog barking. Now, Ronald ended up being charged with all the murders. His story changed many times. What he ended up coming up with is that he said that he had heard voices telling him to do it, and he acted on those voices. But he ended up being sentenced to 6 life sentences for all 6 murders. A life sentence per murder. And as I said, he died in prison May 12th, 2021. So, fast forward to December of 1975. The house ends up being sold to the Lutz family. Now, George and Kathy Lutz moved in with their 3 kids, and they ended up moving out 28 days later, leaving behind all their possessions, and they would never step foot in that house again. So what happened? Now, when so the Lutz family knew, they were told about what happened in the house, and when George's friend heard about what had happened in the house, he told him he should have the house blessed. So they called Father Ralph J. Paquero. I don't know how to say his name. But when he showed up on December 18th, and he began to bless the house, and he said when he got upstairs to the room that used to be the boys' room, Mark and John's, he heard a male voice tell him to get out. A very masculine voice. And he ended up leaving and not completing the blessing. Now, he called them later on the 24th to warn them to stay out of that room, but the phone call got dropped by static and cut off. And so he was not able to warn them properly. Now, sorry, I had to throw another log on the fire. Now, after the priest's visit to the house, it says that he came down with a high fever, plus he got blisters on his hands. And he will never step foot in the house ever again. Now, after a few days in the house, it's said that George started to change his personality. He got real short-tempered, and it seemed like he was always cold. He was always cutting firewood, always stoking the fire, and it seemed like he started to take less and less care of himself. Like he was just like, he would go days without bathing. He wouldn't shave. He just would not take care of himself anymore. And the daughter said she had an imaginary friend, which, you know, in most cases would not be weird. You know, just, you know, kid decided to have an imaginary friend. But the weird thing is when they asked her to describe her imaginary friend, she said her friend's name was Jody, and Jody was a large red-eyed pig. They also said that they would find black liquid in the toilet, and that they would have green slime coming out of the walls. And they also said that in the dead of winter, that room that the priest had warned them to stay out of, which Kathy had turned into a sewing room, would just end up filled with flies. And it's the dead of winter. There shouldn't be flies in the dead of winter. That room would just fill with them. Now, George said he would also wake up every night at about 3:15 a.m. every night. And that is also speculated when the murders were supposed to have happened, was at 3:15 at night. Plus, they claim that one night that Kathy ended up levitating above the bed, and they couldn't figure out what that was or how she'd done that, and she didn't remember it, but everybody else saw it. And George also said that Kathy sometimes would change and look like a 90-year-old lady, like right in front of their eyes. She would just all of a sudden look like she was some 90-year-old lady. Now, since they couldn't get a priest to come bless the house, they decided they would try it themselves. And how they decided to do it was they grabbed a crucifix and just started walking through the house and saying the Lord's Prayer. Now, according to them, as they were doing this, they heard a group of voices yell at them and said, "Will you stop?" Now, on that last night, the 28th night, that fateful last night, there isn't a whole lot known. The family doesn't like to talk about it, but from what's been said, it sounds like there was a lot of loud banging going on in the house. Furniture was moving. The children were terrorized, and it caused them to pack up, leave for Kathy's mother's house, and they would never step foot in the house ever again, leaving all their possessions behind. And of course, we got to talk about Ed and Lorraine Warren. So 3 weeks after the Lutzes left the house, Ed and Lorraine Warren came with a group of people, and they came to investigate the house. Now, they came and put up cameras all through the house, and the cameras were set to go off every so often. And of course, upstairs they caught the famous picture of the little boy peeking through the doorway. And everybody that was there claims there was no children while they were there investigating. And the whole group also said the whole time they were there, they felt very uncomfortable while they were in that house. So, in conclusion, what do I think about this whole ordeal? Is their story true? I have no idea. That's just something they know, and God knows, and only them. What do I think? I do, obviously, I'm a big Christian man. I believe in Christ, and I believe He died for our sins. Now, the Bible has spirits all through the Bible, from Leviticus to 2 Kings to Acts to 2 Chronicles to Isaiah. I mean, just all through. And of course, Jesus Himself dealt with evil spirits all the time, casting them out of people and stuff like that. So, yes, I believe in evil spirits. And yes, evil spirits can interact with us. Now, again, being that said, what is this story true? I don't know. Again, I'll never know. It's an interesting story. But unless you were there, you really don't know. So, but the new people who own the house now, they've also changed the address. Because obviously they would get a bunch of weird people coming to the house, wanting to take pictures, wanting to blah, blah, blah. And so they changed the address of the house. They want privacy. They don't want to be bothered. They say nothing odd goes on in the house. So, again, make your own conclusions. But that's it. That's Campfire Story number 2. And, I want to hear what you have to say down in the comments below. Let me know what you think. And if you have any suggestions for a story, something for me to research and do a campfire story on, hit me up. You know, all my, Instagram and Facebook and email, it's all down below. So it's easy to get a hold of me, or just give me an idea down in the comments. If you liked it, please give me a like, give me a subscribe, and all that wonderful stuff that YouTubers have to say. I think it's law. Alright. Thank you for joining me for JV Campfires episode 2. And I know these are kind of rough right now, but we're just getting started. It'll change and I'll figure it out as we keep going. Hopefully, eventually, I'll figure it out and we'll have a good routine. But never forget, Genesis 9:3. Peace, everybody.